It was 2:07 a.m. when the phone in my radio studio rang. I almost ignored it. At that hour, nobody called my show anymore. But something made me pick up. "Who's this?" I asked. For several seconds, there was only silence. Then a man whispered my name. Not my radio name, my real name. My heart stopped for a moment. I had never told my listeners that name. Then he said something that made my blood run cold.
Do you still remember what happened that night?
I froze, because there was only one night in my entire life I had spent years trying to forget.
You were never supposed to survive.
The line went dead. I stared at the phone, and for the first time in 15 years of working late-night radio, I was afraid to hear what might ring next. The phone went silent, but I didn't move. I kept staring at it as if the thing sitting on my desk had suddenly become dangerous. For 15 years, I had worked the overnight shift at the station. I knew every sound the studio made, the air conditioner clicking on, the old speakers humming, the producer's footsteps in the hallway. That night, every familiar sound felt different. I looked at the clock. 2:08 a.m. Only 1 minute had passed since the call. I reached for my headphones and slowly placed them back over my ears. Maybe it was a prank.
Mommy's trace down.
But even as I said it, I knew that wasn't true. A stranger might know my radio name. A stranger might recognize my voice.
Yes.
But my real name? Almost nobody knew it. I had deliberately kept it away from the show. My listeners knew me as Jack, the calm voice who kept them company through sleepless nights. They knew nothing about the man behind the microphone. Nothing about my childhood.
Yeah.
Nothing about the town I grew up in.
Yeah.
And absolutely nothing about that night. I tried to return to the show. I turned on the next track, adjusted the microphone, and forced myself to sound normal.
Welcome back, night owls. My voice sounded steady.
But inside, I was distracted. I kept looking at the phone, waiting. Nothing. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I started convincing myself that the call had been some cruel coincidence.
Yeah.
Maybe someone had found an old record. Maybe someone from my past had recognized me. Maybe? Ring. I jumped. The phone rang once, then stopped. I stared at it. A few seconds later, ring again. My hand moved toward the receiver, then stopped. I remembered the stranger's voice.
You were never supposed to survive.
I didn't answer. The phone rang a third time, and this time, something strange happened. The studio door behind me slowly opened. I turned around. Nobody was there. The hallway outside was completely dark. Then I noticed something on the floor, a small white envelope. I hadn't seen it when I entered the studio.
Okay.
I stood up slowly and walked toward it. There was no address, no stamp, no name. Just 3 words written across the front. Yo, remember, Jack? My hands went cold, because the handwriting looked familiar. Not familiar like something I'd seen recently. Familiar like something I'd spent years trying to forget. I picked up the envelope, and underneath it was a photograph. The moment I saw it, I knew exactly where it had been taken. It was from that night. I stared at the photograph for what felt like a full minute. It showed an old road surrounded by trees. A streetlight stood near the edge of the frame, casting a pale circle across the wet pavement. I knew that road. I knew the bend in it. And I knew the building in the distance. My fingers tightened around the photograph. It had been 15 years. 15 years since I'd seen that place. 15 years since I'd promised myself I would never go back. I turned the photograph over. There was something written on the back.
A date.
October 17, 2011. My breathing became shallow. That was the date. The exact date I'd spent years trying not to remember. I looked toward the dark hallway behind me. For a moment, I wondered if someone was still inside the station. Hello? My voice disappeared into the darkness. Hello? Nothing answered. I stepped back into the studio and locked the door. Then I looked at the photograph again. There was something I hadn't noticed before. In the bottom corner was a small reflection in the wet road. A car. My car. I remembered that night now. Not everything, just pieces. Rain hitting the windshield.
Yeah.
My hands gripping the steering wheel. A phone ringing somewhere beside me.
And a voice.
A voice I hadn't heard in 15 years. I dropped the photograph onto the desk. Then the studio phone rang again. I didn't touch it. It rang once, twice, then stopped. I stood completely still. A few seconds later, my computer screen flickered. The radio software disappeared. A single audio file appeared on the screen. I stared at the file name. It wasn't a song. It wasn't a recording from tonight. It was labeled OCT17 ARC 2011 ARS Final. My stomach tightened. I hadn't created that file. I hadn't even known it existed. Slowly, I moved the mouse toward it. Then I stopped, because beneath the file name was another line.
Play me, Jack.
I stared at those words. Someone wasn't just calling me. Someone had been inside my past. And somehow, they had brought it back to me. I kept staring at the screen. My hand was still resting beside the mouse. I wanted to click the file. More than that, I wanted to know who had put it there. But something inside me kept saying, "Don't." I pulled my hand away. For the first time that night, I looked around the studio as if I were seeing it differently. The locked door. The dark hallway beyond it. The photograph lying on my desk. The phone that had called me twice. None of it felt random anymore. Someone knew my real name. Someone knew about that night. And now someone had found a recording connected to it. I picked up the photograph again. The image of that wet road stared back at me. Then I noticed something. The car reflected in the photograph wasn't the only thing there. Near the edge of the road stood a figure, barely visible, just a dark shape beneath the trees. I leaned closer. My heart began beating faster. I knew that person. Or at least, I knew the jacket. That black jacket. I'd seen it 15 years ago. That night, someone had been standing beside the road. Someone I'd believed was gone forever. I lowered the photograph. Then the computer made a soft notification sound. I turned toward the screen. The message had changed. "Play me, Jack," was gone. Now there was only one sentence. "You owe me the truth." I stared at it. My mouth went dry. Then the studio phone rang. This time, I answered. "Who is this?" Silence. Then that same man's voice returned. Older,
Calmer.
but unmistakable. "Jack?" I couldn't speak.
Hope I can. You were projecting.
You remember the road. But you don't remember what happened after you left. And suddenly I understood something terrifying. The stranger wasn't trying to remind me of the past. He wanted me to remember the part I'd forgotten.
Those words kept repeating in my head. For 15 years, I'd told myself the same story. It was raining. I was driving home. Something happened on that road. And somehow, I survived. That was all I remembered. Or at least, that was all I'd allowed myself to remember. I slowly placed the phone back on the desk. Then I looked at the computer. The file was still there. My hand moved toward the mouse. This time, I didn't pull away. I clicked. The screen went black for a second. Then an audio player appeared. A timestamp showed, 11:47 p.m., October 17, 2011. My breathing stopped. That was almost exactly the time I'd been driving that road. I put my headphones on. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then I heard rain. Heavy rain. My own breathing. And the faint sound of windshield wipers. I froze, because I knew that sound. I'd heard it 15 years ago. Then came something else. A car door closing. My heart started pounding. I leaned closer to the screen. And then, I heard my younger voice.
Hello?
My hands were shaking. That couldn't be possible. I hadn't recorded anything that night. I hadn't even known this file existed. But the voice continued.
Yeah.
My voice, 15 years younger.
Hello? Is anyone there?
And then I heard another voice in the recording. A man, the same man who had just called me. He said something that made me completely still.
Jack, don't get out of the car.
I stared at the screen. Because I remembered getting out of the car. I remembered the rain. I remembered the road. But I didn't remember why. Then the recording continued. And this time, I heard something I'd spent 15 years believing had never happened. A second car. A sudden brake. Wait. I stared at the screen. 0117 remaining. For a moment, I couldn't understand what I was looking at. The recording had stopped. I'd heard my younger voice. I'd heard the other man. I'd heard the car.
I'd heard the brakes, and then I'd heard myself scream, "Ah!" Wait. But the file wasn't finished. There was still more. I slowly reached for the headphones. My hands were steadier now. Not because I was calm. I pressed play again. This time I wasn't listening for memories. I was listening for the truth.
Who is that?
You already know who I am. Shit. What do you want from me?
I want you to remember what you saw.
That was the moment I realized the recording wasn't about what happened to me. It was about what I'd seen. I saw someone.
No, you saw nothing.
I remembered one thing clearly. I had seen someone standing beside that road. Who was standing there? Someone you were never supposed to see. My blood ran cold. Because I suddenly remembered the black jacket. I know that jacket.
Then you remember him.
I stared at the screen. I knew exactly who he meant. He's alive?
He never died, Jack.
I stopped breathing. For 15 years, I'd believed that man was dead. Where is he?
Closer than you think.
I looked toward the locked studio door. The sound came from the recording first. Then I heard it outside my door. The recording had predicted the knocks, and now the phone was ringing again. Then why did you call me?
Because you were there when it happened.
My memory suddenly shifted. I wasn't driving home that night. I had stopped because I'd seen something on the road. What did I see?
A car hit someone on that road, and you were the only witness.
Then I remembered the second car, the brakes, and why I'd gotten out of my car.
That was why I'd spent 15 years believing the night was an accident. Someone had made sure I remembered it that way.
And then I remembered the one thing I'd spent 15 years trying to forget. I knew that man.
You promised me you would forget.
I didn't understand what he meant.
Then I remembered. I had made that promise before I ever left that road.
What did I promise? That you'd never tell anyone what you saw? Then I remembered what I'd seen inside that car.
You were when you were trying this pre-okay. You saw too much.
That's when I realized the accident wasn't what I'd been told.
You didn't see an accident, Jack. You saw what happened before it.
That sentence brought the missing memory back. You made me forget?
You wanted to forget.
And suddenly, I remembered. I hadn't been forced to forget that night. I'd chosen to bury it.
Jack, I'm sorry. I called because you deserve to know the truth. For 15 years, I thought I'd lost the truth. The truth was, I'd been running from it. That night wasn't a secret I needed to hide anymore. It was a memory I finally understood. Some memories don't disappear because we forget them. Sometimes we simply aren't ready to remember. If this story stayed with you, like this video and subscribe to Beyond the Moment for more unforgettable stories.